Is buying a used drone worth the investment, or are you better off just buying a brand new one? We're gonna find out in this video. Hello and welcome back to Gears and Tech. Today, we're gonna answer a question that I had and I'm finding out the answer to right now so that I can help you guys decide what the best choice is for you. I have here a DJI Mavic Pro drone. This drone is now 1 generation old because the Mavic Pro 2 has come out, and obviously it's better in every single way. When you're looking at buying a drone, there are a few different options available to you now. You can go and buy a new Pro, which is quite expensive, or there are lower end models that are about the same price as what you would get this Mavic Pro drone for. The question you want to ask is it worth it to go and get a previous generation Pro, or is it better to go and buy a new drone? Let's cover what I've got here just so you know kind of what I'm talking about. This is the Mavic Pro Fly More combo. The standard Mavic Pro drone would come with just this drone, 1 battery, and the controller, and that's it. So this is what you would get with your regular Mavic Pro purchase. If you get the Fly More bundle, you get 2 extra batteries. Now these batteries will cost you about $100 each, so there's a lot of value there. It comes with this really neat little adapter, which actually will plug into a battery and then give you 2 USB ports, which you can use to charge your flight controller as well as your phone. It'll also come with a car adapter, which allows you to plug in your battery and charge that from within your car, which is really handy for me. And you get the standard charger, which plugs into your wall socket. That would come with this drone anyway, but you get it with the Fly More bundle as well. I also got this fancy case for it. This is not part of the Fly More bundle, but it's really nice because everything fits inside this case quite nicely. We need to talk about the features of this drone and then compare it to the other options that are available for you right now so that we can talk about if this is worth it for you or not. Before we get too far into this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. If you've seen some of our content already and have not subscribed, we want you to join our community. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get back to the video. First, I'm gonna go over the specs of the drone itself so that we know what we're dealing with here, and then we'll compare to what's available for the newer drones. The folded size of the drone is 83 millimeters by 83 millimeters by 198 millimeters. It is not small. It's quite big when I compare to like my cell phone. This is a Samsung A70, so that gives you a rough idea of the size of that. And then there's the thickness. It's not big, but it's much bigger than what I expected. And that's not a bad thing. Actually, a big drone is not a bad drone. They're actually generally more stable and they fly a lot better. So it's not a big deal, but you should know this is not a pocket drone. You're not gonna stick this in your pocket and walk away. This is very much a full-size, full-flight drone. It should also be noted in Canada, because of the weight of this drone, you are actually required to hold a license to fly this drone. And getting the license is not difficult. It requires you doing an online test. You can pay, it costs $10 to do the test. You have multiple attempts. You have to pay $10 every time, but eventually when you do get it, you will have that license and it's yours forever. Similar to a boat license in Canada, it's just now for flying. So you should know that if you're looking at this drone, you will be required to have that license. Now, do you need that license to fly it? No, you could go and fly it, but if somebody calls the cops and the cops come to investigate you flying the drone, they will want to see that license. You can pay huge fines for flying without a license, and it's generally frowned on. So I wouldn't take that risk. Go get the license if you've got one of these kinds of drones. The weight of this drone is 734 grams, excluding the gimbal cover. That's this little plastic guy right here. And you're not gonna fly with that gimbal cover on anyway. It's all scratched up usually, and it's hard for the camera to see through it. The max ascent speed in sport mode is 5 meters per second. The max descent speed is 3 meters per second. It supports a maximum speed of 40 miles per hour or 65 kilometers an hour in sport mode without wind. The max service ceiling above sea level, it'll fly to 5,000 meters. The max flight time is 27 minutes if there is a 15 mile per hour wind. If it's just hovering with zero wind, it will fly for 24 minutes. with an overall flight time of 21 minutes in normal flight, 15% remaining battery level. Maximum flight distance is 8 miles or 13 kilometers with no wind. It has a max operating temperature of 0 to 40 degrees Celsius, and it does have GPS on it as well. The operating frequency, 2.4 gigahertz to 2.483 gigahertz. Those are just sub channels. That's not a big deal. It is FCC compliant to 7 kilometers. So that's how far you can actually fly it away from you, about 7 kilometers. The part that you really want to know about though is the camera. The camera has a 1 and 2.3 inch CMOS camera with a effective pixel size of 12.35 million pixels. 12 megapixel camera basically is what it is. Your field of view is 78.8 degrees at 28 millimeters with distortion on the edges. The ISO range is 100 to 3200 for video and 100 to 1600 for photo. Shutter speed 8 seconds to 1/8000th of a second. And your image max resolution would be 4000 by 3000. You can do single shot and burst shot and auto exposure and interval exposure. And for me, because I use it for video recording, the video recording modes are 4K at 24, 25, or 30 frames per second. You can do 2.7K at 24, 25, or 30 frames per second. FHD, which is 1920 by 1080, will support up to 96 frames per second, or you can do HD 720 up to 120 frames per second. Maximum video bitrate 60 megabits per second. The file type that's supported is FAT32 or exFAT. You'll probably want to use exFAT just because your file size will end up a lot bigger with a 4K video, and so it'll just allow you to record it all as one video. Rather with FAT, it'll record into 4 gigabyte chunks and then break those up. Your photos are recorded in JPEG. Your videos are in MP4 or MOV. I prefer MP4, and it uses a micro SD card. I know that's a lot of specs and it's very specky. Is that a real word? I don't know, but we'll say it's specky. For the average everyday user, what does that mean? Quite simply, this camera on this drone will record at 4K and it'll capture beautiful 4K videos. It will capture 2.7K, which is actually not too bad. If space on like your storage is a concern, you can also record in 1080. It has good image stabilization and it has a gimbal which totally smooths it out. You can't tell it's really on a drone, and you have full control over that. So you can hover and then move it all around. There are tons of flight modes for tracking, for doing aerial shots around you. You can have free flight. There's tons of features supported as far as how you capture that video. Let's say there's 3 market segments here. There's the cheap generic drones that you can find on Amazon, which are quite inexpensive and cost roughly the same as one of these in the used market. You are looking at a used high quality drone such as this, or you're talking about a new high quality drone such as the ones that are out there on the market right now. Why would you pick one versus another? The first thing you need to ask yourself, am I buying this drone because I want to fly a drone around? Or am I buying this drone because I want to capture some really good aerial photography? That's the one question you want to ask yourself, which will decide where you're going to go as far as this decision-making process. For me, I knew that I was buying this drone because I wanted to capture aerial photography to help enhance some of the videos that I do that I find myself filming outdoors. So I knew that the camera was important to me. If you are doing anything with photography, do not kid yourself here to try and save a couple bucks. The Amazon and cheap drone options have a horrible camera. If you're buying for aerial photography, you must be talking about a high-end drone. DJI makes some very good drones. They have very good camera technology. If you're doing aerial photography, don't screw around, get a high quality drone. If you just want something you can screw around with, you don't care about the image, you don't care about the video or anything like that, you just want to fly a drone, certainly go and buy a generic cheap drone on Amazon because the flight characteristics will be similar. You'll be able to free fly, you'll be able to just screw around and have fun, but your images will suck. So don't buy that for pictures, because you're not going to get the result you're looking for. You will not be happy. I'm going to assume that you're watching this because you want to do aerial photography or you want to have the ability to capture some good aerial pictures and or video. And for that reason, you must be talking about a high-end drone. Now we start to ask ourselves, do we want to get an older high-end drone, or do we want to get a brand new high-end drone? So we're gonna compare a couple things first, just to figure out which model you're looking for. Now, if we're talking about price for price, this drone that I purchased, I got for 500 Canadian dollars. I bought it used. It does have the Fly More package. Most guys are looking for, they're asking between 600 and 800 Canadian dollars for this bundle. There will be some room for negotiation, and then I just waited until there was somebody willing to take $500. Now, every single day, the price will drop more. And after I emailed people and said, I'll give you 500 bucks, and they said, no, get lost, you suck, I can't believe you're such a After I bought this, within a week, a lot of them came back and said, okay, fine, I'm sorry, I've reconsidered, I will accept your $500. So $500 is about the market price right now. Obviously that will drop as time goes on, but as of making this video, you can get them for a reasonable price. Keep in mind, this was a $1,600 drone only a few years ago. So to come down to 500 for this kind of tech is actually pretty good. The first drone I want to compare it to is a brand new DJI Mini 2. If you get just the Mini 2 without the Fly More package, it will come in at around $500 to $600 Canadian, which means we're talking dollars to dollars. We're talking about a previous generation Pro versus a Mini 2, which could have the same kind of technology as what this has. So let's compare it and see how they stack up. So I'm going to reference the information available from Drone Rush. This is dronerush.com. They'll compare a lot of different drones and give you a real quick snapshot of what does what and how they stack up. In this case, we're looking at the DJI Mini 2 versus the DJI Mavic Pro. The flight time on the Mini 2 is about 31 minutes versus the flight time on the Pro, which is 27 minutes. The Mini 2 does have a 4K camera at 12 megapixel, and the Mavic Pro has a 4K camera at 12 megapixels. The Mini 2 will only fly 36 miles per hour, whereas the Pro will fly a little faster at 40 miles per hour. And the flight distance is about 6.2 miles on the Mini 2 versus 4.3 miles on the Mavic Pro. All in all, they're quite comparable. It seems like the camera from the Mini, or the camera from the Pro, has trickled down onto the Mini. So they're kind of the same. The thing to note, the Mini is small enough that you would not need the license that I talked about for this. That's the one advantage of the Mini, is that you do not require a license to fly it. There are downsides, and we'll cover those now. If we expand out the features of the Mini 2, the positives are the 4K camera, which is the same as what the Pro has. Very portable, easy to fly, versatile flight mode, smooth and stable 3-axis gimbal, and it's 249 grams, so you do get to skip the FAA registration in the United States or the Canadian flight standards, whatever they're called, for licensing. So there's no licensing requirements. The downsides of a Mini 2, you have far fewer flight features than a regular DJI drone. If you're looking for features like follow me, spotlight, where you can just pick a person and say, keep an eye on that person, this drone doesn't do that. It just has pre-programmed flight paths that it'll take. There are some hacks and workarounds that guys have shown online, but they're really hacky and they aren't a full proper workaround. And that's why when I was looking at a drone, I started to look at a used drone, because the features I was looking for as a videographer was not there on the Mini 2. So this has little sensors here, a little camera here and here outside of the 4K camera. It has ultrasonic here and a camera down here, so that as it's flying around, it's not gonna fly into a tree. Because the Mini 2 doesn't have these pre-programmed options, it doesn't need the collision avoidance, because they assume that you've got this in your hands and that you're watching it while you're flying it. And because you need to be watching it while you fly it, you lose a lot of functionality that you gain in a higher end drone. So even though this is a last gen drone, it has features that this Mini does not have. So we're talking about drone, same price for same price. So keep that in mind when you're comparing the two. Obviously, you know which way I went when I did this, but that's because I knew I wanted follow me. It's because I knew I wanted all these other features that the Mini 2 didn't offer. That's my comparison of the Mini 2 versus last gen technology. Now it's time to compare the old king of the block against the new king of the block. We are looking at the DJI Mavic Pro versus the Mavic 2 Pro. The price of the Mavic 2 Pro, you're not gonna find a used one right now. You just won't. They're too new. You're looking at almost $2,000 Canadian versus $500 Canadian. There is a significant price difference. I am looking for a significant feature improvement in some way that makes me want to justify the fact that I could have 4 of these, or I can have one Mavic 2 Pro. The quick features on this, again, the Mavic Pro flies for 27 minutes. The Mavic 2 Pro flies for 31, a little bit more flight time. They both have a 4K camera. The Mavic 2 Pro will fly at 44 miles per hour versus the 40 mile per hour of the Mavic Pro. And it'll fly a little bit further at 6.2 miles versus 4.3 miles. Interestingly enough, this is on Drone Rush again, they show that the Mavic Pro has a Drone Rush score of 9.0 and the Drone Rush score for the 2 Pro is 9.7. However, the user score for the Mavic Pro is 9.2 and the user score for the Mavic 2 Pro is only 8.3. That tends to make me think that Drone Rush has allegiances or has expectations from DJI. They probably sponsor them in some way. They pay them money to make sure that their drones are scoring well and getting good reviews. So obviously the new drone needs to be better than the old drone so that they can justify that sponsorship. The users, however, they have no allegiances, they have no expectations, and they are more honest. So the users are saying the Mavic 2 is not that great compared to the dollars versus what you get. And this is kind of what I discovered as well when I was looking at it. What are the positives of the Mavic 2 Pro? It's a reliable drone. It has a 20 megapixel 4K camera with a 1-inch sensor. So it has a bigger sensor. It has more pixels that it can capture on that sensor, which is why it's a 20 megapixel. It still only records 4K though, but you get a higher pixel density possibility on there, so it's more clear at 4K. Again, if you're doing videography and you want this for video footage, you will get a clearer image at 4K on the new drone versus this drone. Does that mean that it's justified? Well, personally, no, I don't think so. This does 4K, it does it very well, and your images show just fine. Until they're talking about 8K, I wouldn't make that jump. It has long range connectivity, great flight time. I mean, 30 minutes is a really good flight time. It does go a little bit faster. And so they say as the bottom line, as one of 2 machines launched together for the consumer drone market, the DJI Mavic 2 Pro is near identical to the Mavic 2 Zoom, with the main difference being the camera. The Pro rocks a 1-inch sensor that shoots 4K at 100 megabits per second, making it one of the very best cameras in the sky for this size of drone. And again, that's true, the very, very, very best camera in the sky currently. But it's only marginally better than this one, and it's 3 times higher in the price. Keep that in mind. Here we can see a side-by-side comparison of this one is the Mavic Pro. That's what we've got right here. Then the Mavic 2 is over here on the side. So you can see kind of how they stack up for size. They're about the same size. So you would need a license for the Mavic 2 Pro as well. Overall, what are you getting with a Mavic 2 Pro versus a Mavic Pro? You're getting a drone that's a little bit faster, it flies a little bit longer, it can go a little bit further away, and it has a little bit higher resolution camera. That seems like a lot, but in real life and practicality, you will be just as happy with the Mavic Pro. If you already have a Mavic Pro and you're thinking about upgrading, I wouldn't. I would just keep it. If you don't have any drone at all and you're looking for the best bang for the buck, I'm telling you, the used Mavic Pro is a very good position to start in, at least to get yourself something that you don't need to upgrade right away because it will do everything you need to. And then if you can justify the extra value that comes from the newer product, certainly you can go there if you find value in that, being able to fly further or shoot a little bit higher pixel density. The question, is buying a used drone now a good idea? Yes, I think so. I really do, as you can see that I've done here. I've already used it a few times in some of my other videos, and I'm planning to keep this for quite a few years now, just as a backup way to get a camera in the sky to increase my footage opportunities for the videos that I shoot. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video. We hope you enjoy the content in this video, and we'd love to have you come back. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And for those subscribers who are looking for that extra special thing that you can do to support this channel, consider joining our members group. That's where we're building this community, the Gears and Tech community, where we can all enjoy content together. you'll get special perks, which we'd love for you to check out by clicking the link down below. For those of you who are just happy to watch the video, that's okay too. You can check out some of our other content right over here, where we've got some previous videos that have already been uploaded and enjoyed by many of our viewers already. We do hope to see you again. This has been Gears and Tech. Have a great day.